going on, everyone? Chris from Pickdawgz.com here with the Wraparound. We're going to be breaking down the NHL action going down on Saturday, October 11th, 2025. If you like this content, make sure you smash that thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. Let me know your NHL picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, the games that I absolutely love, head to Pickdawgz.com. Click the Experts tab at the top of the page. It's a great time to do it because Saturday, we not only have a 16-game card that I'm going to have some NHL best bets from, but I'm also going to have some college football on the board. My college football big play, as well as my NHL power play. I'm going to have some 3-packs on there as well. The best thing you guys can do, honestly, is to hop on a long-term pass because the 3-day and the 7-day passes are less than buying each of the Saturday's daily packages individually. And what it's going to get you is access to my entire card of premium plays on Saturday, my full NFL card on Sunday. We swept the board last Sunday and Monday, and hoping to do that again as well from the NFL. And we're going to have plenty of NHL action in between. Really locking in on the NHL this year. So make sure that you jump on board for that. But we're here to talk about a full card of NHL action today. 16 games. Everyone is in action. Now, I cannot stress this enough. You don't have to bet every single game. I've seen a couple people comment saying, oh, well, Wraparound hasn't been sharp out of the gate. I've said it before. I understand some of these early wraparounds may not be the most profitable, but what we're trying to do here is see what these teams are. We only have 2 games to work with some teams. Some teams only 1 game to work with. So we're still trying to figure out what these teams are. I will always tell you guys if I lean towards a game, I don't have a great feeling for it. But the games that I do love the most will be a Pick Dawgz Premium, but I'm still going to have plenty of plays here that I give out on the wraparound that I do like as well. We're going to talk through it. Enough blabbering from me. You're going to have enough of that over the next few minutes. Let's not waste any more time. You guys know the drill. You ready? I'm ready. Let's get into it. Our first game comes to us from the Canada Life Center where the Winnipeg Jets take on the Los Angeles Kings. And this is an early game for both of these teams. But I will say that I think that this still slightly benefits Winnipeg more, especially being at home where they were one of the most profitable teams in the NHL last season. The Los Angeles Kings, they managed to bounce back from that, performance defensively against Colorado with a win against Vegas on the road. That was a great win for Los Angeles, but doesn't excuse the fact that they still allowed 5 goals in that game. And I still think that Los Angeles is a candidate for some heavy defensive regression this season. Winnipeg, yeah, they gave up their fair share of goals as well, but I like the fight that they showed in that game. You got to remember, this is still going to be a 10:30 a.m. puck drop for, the Los Angeles Kings, who are still making a bit of a travel eastern, or at least more east after playing their first 2 games on the West Coast. So I'm going to go with the Winnipeg Jets in this one. I'm going to take them on the money line to kick off the card on Saturday. Our next game takes us to the Scotiabank Saddledome where the Calgary Flames take on the St. Louis Blues. And, the Blues did not look great in that opener against the Minnesota Wild. And that was a little bit shocking considering they were so strong at home down the stretch last season. And historically, they have actually owned this matchup with the Calgary Flames. But I think this is a good spot for Calgary to bounce back. The Scotiabank Saddledome is a very unique environment in its own right. It's where Calgary's done a lot of their best work for the better part of the last few years. The thing about the St. Louis Blues is that while they have owned Calgary in this matchup, I think the spot favors Calgary, considering that it was just a bad spot for them against Vancouver. It was, a back-to-back to start the year off an emotional shootout victory the night prior against a rival in the Edmonton Oilers. Went into Vancouver, came out flat. Well, now they have their home opener. I think they come out with a little bit more fire out of their bellies this time. I think the St. Louis Blues are a team that, is not only looking for their first win, they're looking for their first goal of the season. And I think that, if it is Dustin Wolf here, we'll have to see who gets the nod. Always check your starting goalie reports, or before you bet games. But if it is Dustin Wolf here, I like the Flames. I like Dustin Wolf this season. I think he's going to be, one of the better goaltenders in the NHL. Big reason why the Flames, I think, are going to be a candidate for a playoff spot this year as well. So I'm going to take the Flames on the money line in this one. Now we're going to the UBS Arena for a matchup between the New York Islanders and the Washington Capitals. And I got to be honest, I was impressed with the New York Islanders from what I saw in their opener. This is, an Islanders team that I'm used to seeing under Barry Trotz from, scoring a lot fewer goals, I should say, and just a lower scoring game. But I'll tell you, Patrick Waugh has his team playing some solid hockey. He's got them playing more up and down north-south hockey instead of just east-west. And I think that this is a Islanders team that you got to watch out for. They've got a lot of youth. You know, Matthew Schneider looked really good in his debut. Or sorry, Matthew Schaefer, pardon me, excuse me. Um, yeah, I think this is an Islanders team that's going to make some noise. And if Ilya Sorokin gets the goal support, he can win a lot of games for this Islanders team on his own when they weren't scoring goals. So imagine what happens if the offense picks up. Washington, is a team that, I'm still worried about the age with this team, if it's going to come back to haunt them at a certain point. And we're getting plus money with the Islanders. And this is a matchup where we haven't seen back-to-back wins in this head-to-head matchup. We've only seen it once over the last 3 years. And that was when the Islanders won back-to-back meetings in November and December of 2023. These teams have traded wins back and forth. I'm going to roll with that trend here. I'm going to go with the Islanders and take this one on the money line at a great price at home. Now we had the Little Caesars Arena for a matchup between the Detroit Red Wings and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, the Toronto Maple Leafs are usually a team that can string wins together, especially when they are favorites. They do a lot of damage in that role. They've won 8 straight as favorites following a win. And I like what I've seen from in their opener. I was on Montreal plus the goal and a half in that first matchup because historically, and I back this up, Toronto has had issues with teams like Montreal and Ottawa early on in the season because they just come out a little bit slow. Their rivals take it to them. Their heads are a little bit big. It takes them a little while to, get in the flow of things. But Toronto showed a lot of punch, a lot of fight in that opener. They needed a couple empty netters, and it was tight through the first couple of periods. But I'll tell you, I liked what I seen from Toronto in that opener, and I think that they're going to have some fight. I did not like what I saw from Detroit in that game, as I just didn't think that John Gibson was a great pickup for them in goal. Now, it looks like we're going to see Cam Talbot here. At least that's what's been confirmed from what I've seen in terms of starting goalie. I don't think it matters here. I think Toronto's still the better team here. I think whoever they send out in goal is going to have the edge over Cam Talbot in this one, who's just been a journeyman that just can't really find a consistent home for more than a couple seasons at a time. I just think that Toronto's the better team here, and just, like I said, given their history as favorites following a win, I'm going to go with the Leafs here to picking up another win over the Detroit Red Wings. Now we head to the TD Garden for this matchup between the Boston Bruins and the Buffalo Sabres. And, I still think that the Boston Bruins are going to be a team that, you know, are going to struggle and probably be near the bottom of the Atlantic Division this season, as this is going to be a team that's going to rebuild. However, Jeremy Swayman did look solid in that opener, which was a big problem for the Boston Bruins last season, as they couldn't really get him much support. And now you face a Boston lineup that didn't score a goal against the Rangers. I was concerned about the Rangers early on this season after their showing against Pittsburgh, but maybe Pittsburgh was just really solid on that night. And I've said before, the Sabres are one of those teams that start the season strong before waiting until, December or maybe even January to sort of rip their fans' hearts out and start having the wheels fall off the cart. But maybe they're not even going to wait for that long to turn into the Sabres and turn into a pumpkin. They did not look good in that opener. They traded away one of their main offensive threats. Or sorry, they lost one of their main offensive threats in the offseason in J.J. Peterka. And I don't like this Sabres lineup right now. Tage Thompson is great. They have a couple good pieces, but it's just not working right now. And I think the Bruins are still a team with a lot of veterans, a lot of pride, and I think they take it to the Sabres here. So it's a lean for me because I don't love this Bruins team long term, but I think for right now I'm going to lean towards the Bruins on the money line. Now we head to the United Center for this matchup between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Montreal Canadiens. And, we all have, guilty pleasures, things that we like that maybe we don't want to tell people that we like. Some guys like Taylor Swift. Some guys like romantic comedy movies. I'm not either one of those guys. But what I do like is betting on Chicago Blackhawks hockey because they've been competitive through their first couple of games. And I'll tell you, I like what I've seen from them. Now, Montreal, they came out, they were a little bit flat against Toronto and came out and beat the brakes off of Detroit on the second half of the back-to-back. But Chicago, they went toe-to-toe with the defending Cup champs on the road. They went toe-to-toe with the Boston Bruins on the road, losing that game in a shootout. Now they get home for their home opener where they won a big majority of their games last season. At least the majority of their wins, I should say, came at home. And Montreal is just not a team that I want. I know they were a playoff team and, you know, a team that was, showing a lot of fight last year, but they're also not a team that I'm just jumping out to back, laying a hefty price on the road just because early on in the season. I like what I've seen from Chicago. I really do, and I think this is a team that maybe it's going to be that team that I just can't stop betting, even though it's bad for my bankroll. But so what? I'm going to still bank on the Chicago Blackhawks here. I'm going to take a shot on the Blackhawks on the money line in this one. Now we go to the Benchmark International Arena. It's going to take me a while to get used to not saying Emily Arena. The Benchmark International Arena for his matchup between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New Jersey Devils. And, the New Jersey Devils were a team that I kind of, gave some hope to early on in the season. I think that Jacob Markstrom could be a solid option for them, going down the road. But what I didn't like was, their performance in game one. I mean, yeah, they gave the Carolina Hurricanes some fits. They traded goals back and forth with them. But then they fell apart, and then they gave up a fourth goal. They gave up the lead with under 3 minutes to go, gave up an empty netter, and then gave up another one for good measure late in that game. And it just kind of felt like they just hit the quit button on that game. And now you go to Tampa Bay, who are coming off a home loss, a rarity for them. And, I mean, even though they do lose a decent number of games every year, and some of them come at home, but we're not used to seeing the Lightning lose a home opener all that often over the years. And they've done historically well against the Metropolitan Division, especially as favorites. They've won 5 straight in that role. I just think this is a mismatch. I think the Lightning are just a far better team in this matchup. I think they have an edge in goaltending. I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Lightning at home in this one. Now we go to the Lenovo Center, where the Carolina Hurricanes take on the Philadelphia Flyers. It's the heaviest favorite price on the board, but for good reason on Saturday. I think the Carolina Hurricanes are just this, massively better team here. It's a seismic advantage in their favor. We just talked about what they did against New Jersey Devils piling on in the third period. And now they take on a Philadelphia Flyers team that scored 1 goal against the Florida Panthers in their opener. They got swept in the season series against the Carolina Hurricanes last year. Lost the 2 games at home in Philadelphia by a combined score of 9-1. They gave up 4+ goals in all 3 meetings last year. The Flyers, for me, I think are going to, pardon my French, I think they're going to be on my shit list this year because they're basically starting in their goaltending, 1-2 goaltending rotation, a pair of backups, as far as I'm concerned, backup level goaltenders in Samuel Urson and Dan Vladar. It's not going to work for Philadelphia this season, and I think they do have a lot of quality players, including Matvei Michkov, but I just don't see it for the Flyers this year. I think the Hurricanes run away with this one. I'm going to go with the Canes on the puck line. Now we go to the PPG Paints Arena for this rematch between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Rangers. And I gave the Pittsburgh Penguins the benefit of the doubt in that last matchup that they had following the win over the Rangers from opening night, where the Penguins won that game 3-0. And well, what did the Penguins do to reward me? They come out with a 4-3 win over the Islanders. But I will say, I was very concerned with that defensive performance because I still didn't love what I saw from them there. They did need a late third period goal to pull out the win in that one, and maybe Pittsburgh's going to be just fine. But I think it's a quick revenge spot for the New York Rangers that clearly found some confidence. They shut out the Buffalo Sabres. Was that game more about the Buffalo Sabres, stinking up the joint? Well, we're going to find out here. But on a quick revenge spot, I think the New York Rangers are too veteran of a team to just get swept in 2 early meetings with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's not a game I'm rushing to the window to bet, but I'm going to lean towards the Rangers on the money line to get some revenge in this matchup. Now we head to the Amerant Bank Arena for a matchup between the Florida Panthers and the Ottawa Senators. And, the Florida Panthers were a team that I said were potentially going to start out slow. And didn't mean they weren't going to win games. I just mean that there were some games that were going to be maybe a lot more competitive than you would just assume that the Florida Panthers would be in. And we've seen that. I mean, we've seen the Florida Panthers have 1-goal wins over Philadelphia and Chicago at home. 2 teams that I expect are going to be bottom feeders in the NHL this season. But wins nonetheless. I expect another one here. The Ottawa Senators, they got a nice win on the road to start the year against Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they're going to come back down to earth a little bit in this game. Florida Panthers are still one of the best teams in the NHL. And, this is going to be the last game of their 3-game homestand to start season before they head out on the road. I think, Ottawa, they were a great team last year, but they did a lot of their damage at home. And it's just a bit of a lot of travel for them. I know it's the back-to-back in Florida to start the year, but then they go home to Nashville, back on the road to Buffalo, home to Seattle, home to play Seattle on a back-to-back. So it's just a lot for Ottawa early on in the year, and I just think that Florida, it's a reasonable price with them. I think that they still are the better team, and they've owned the Senators in this matchup. They've won 6 straight against Ottawa in this building. I'm going to go with the Panthers to win this one on the money line. Now we're going to go to the Bridgestone Arena for this matchup between the Nashville Predators and the Utah Mammoth. And for the Nashville Predators, they came out in their last game in their opener. They got a narrow win 2-1 against the Columbus Blue Jackets. But I was more impressed with Utah in the road loss to Colorado. They gave the Avalanche all they could handle in that game. They went toe-to-toe from them. It was a third period power play goal for the Avs that ended up being the difference. But I'll tell you, Utah, they didn't sit back and let Colorado come at them. They outshot the Avalanche in that game 33-27. Carl Vejmelka was really solid in that game. He's instilling himself as the number one in this Utah crease. I still have some improvement that I need to see from Nashville before I'm just going to back them at home. I think it is very telling that the Mammoth are favored on the road in this spot. I'm still not buying any stock in Nashville just yet. So I'm going to take the Mammoth in this one. I'm going to take Utah to win this one on the money line. Now we go to the Grand Casino Arena, another arena name I'm going to have to get used to saying. The Grand Casino Arena, where the Minnesota Wild take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. And, a lot of sides are going to be given out on today's wraparound, but this is going to be a game where I take a different approach to it. I'm going to take the 60-minute tie, this game to go to overtime. You can get it around plus 330 or better. The reason I'm doing this is because you look at, this is why I tell everybody, you got to check out the betting tools at Pick Dawgz Sports Chat Plays, because you find nuggets like these. The Columbus Blue Jackets have covered the puck line in 14 straight games in Minnesota. That's insane. And believe it or not, a lot of the recent meetings between these two teams have been 1-goal games, including 5 of the last 8 meetings that have needed overtime or a shootout. So for me in this one, I'm rolling with the trend here, because I think there's just not a lot to split these two teams, especially with only 1 game under their respective belts already this season. Columbus, even in a loss to Nashville, was highly competitive in that game. It was a great defensive battle in that one. Minnesota, a team that's always played tough defense. They shut out the St. Louis Blues in their opener. For me, it's going to be another, I think, lower scoring, maybe a 3-2 kind of game if you're looking for a correct score. We've seen that score a lot between these two teams as well. So I'm going to go for this game to go to overtime between the Wild and the Blue Jackets. Now we're going to the Ball Arena for this game between the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. And, I mentioned it a lot talking about the Avalanche coming into this season. That, one of the things you saw from Nathan MacKinnon after the playoffs last year was how frustrated he was that the team could not get the job done against this Dallas Stars team as they were eliminated because the Dallas Stars were banged up and the Avalanche just blew it in that series. You don't see, MacKinnon get that frustrated and annoyed, but he was after that series. And we've seen the Avalanche early on this season just pull out, the breaks and beat up on people defensively. And I think that that's what we're going to see here too. This is a playoff revenge game, and a lot of times I like to take the team that's going out for playoff revenge, but I especially like it in this one, considering what we saw from the Avalanche, Nathan MacKinnon, after that playoff series loss. The Dallas Stars are a fantastic team, but I did not love what I saw from them defensively in that opening game against the Winnipeg Jets. I was on the under in that game, and it went over the total by a mile. We saw 9 goals in that one. The Dallas Stars did end up on the right side of it. They won that game 5-4. But again, did not love, the form that they had late in that game. Is Winnipeg made a game of it. They scored 3 unanswered goals, including a pair of shorthanded goals around the halfway mark of the third period in that game. And the Colorado Avalanche, not a team that's going to give up many mistakes. And when the Dallas Stars are underdogs, it's usually for a reason, as they've lost 4 straight in the underdog role. I think they're going to make it 5 here. I'm going to take the Avalanche on the money line in this one. Now we're going to the SAP Center for this matchup between the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks. And I'm just taking the approach here of just siding with what I feel is the better team. Give San Jose credit for how they went toe to toe against the Vegas Golden Knights at home, but it was still yet another loss for San Jose in that matchup. And the Anaheim Ducks, they took a loss of their own, 3-1 against the Seattle Kraken. But for me in this game, I just look at the talent side by side, and I think the Anaheim Ducks are the better team with the better goaltending. And head to head, they have owned this matchup. They've won 5 straight meetings with the Sharks, and 7 of the last 8, 8 of the last 10. So it's quick analysis for me in this one because it's not a game I'm rushing to the window to bet. Not a game I love, but I do like the Anaheim Ducks. I have high hopes for them this season. So I'm going to take the Anaheim Ducks on the money line in this one. Now we're going to Climate Pledge Arena for this matchup between the Seattle Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights. And, I'm looking at the Seattle Kraken here. I know the Vegas Golden Knights are still one of the league's best, and I'm not taking that away from them. But I would be lying if I said I didn't have concerns with this team early on in the season and what's been going on defensively. Sure, they won that game against the San Jose Sharks 4-3, but they had to rally from 3 one-goal deficits against the Sharks in that game. Now, you could almost say that they almost could have lost that game if it wasn't for a goal in the third period with a minute 34 to go in a complete collapse by the San Jose Sharks, who had an empty net in that game. That was just the most San Jose Sharks thing to happen in the third period of that game. Vegas could have easily lost that one. So you could be talking about a Vegas Golden Knights team that could be 0-2 in this game. The Seattle Kraken have been, they were sharp defensively in that opener, and I think that they can give the Vegas Golden Knights some fits in this one. So, like I said, I just don't love what I've seen from Vegas early on this season. They've been a much stronger home team compared to their marks on the road. I'm going to take a shot here. I'm going to lean towards the Kraken plus the 1.5. Put a little bit on Kraken money line as well. And our final game on Saturday's card takes us to Rogers Place, where the Edmonton Oilers take on the Vancouver Canucks. And I've said it before with the Edmonton Oilers. This is a team that I look to fade early on in the season for a couple of games because we saw it last year. They had an early Stanley Cup hangover where they lost their first 3 games of the season. And they gave up 15 goals in those 3 games. And, well, the first game of the season didn't go well for them. They collapsed and they lost to the Calgary Flames, blowing a 3-goal lead and losing the game in a shootout. And now you take on a Vancouver Canucks team that beat that same Calgary Flames team, even though we mentioned earlier they caught the Flames in a great spot in that matchup, but beat them 5-1. And we're not going with the Team A beat Team B, so Team B is better than Team C, or Team A is better than Team C, equation here. But I just think there's value here with the Oilers, who, like I said, I just think are slow starters. It's already taken one game for me and a lot of folks to call their goaltending into question already this season. I mean, I talked about it, talking about the Oilers in that game. There's a lot of volatility with a pairing of Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard, and I think that the Vancouver Canucks could exploit that volatility here. So I'm going to take the Vancouver Canucks in this one, and I'm going to take them plus the 1.5. I'm going to put a healthy amount on Vancouver money line as well in this one to round things out. That's it. That's all your NHL action for Saturday, October 11th, 2025. Again, if you like this content, make sure you smash that thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. Let me know your NHL picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily NHL best bet and my college football best bets, or any of my packages for Saturday or long-term pass, head to pickdawgz.com and use that promo code PICK at checkout and get 15% off your purchase. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys.